I'm here today with Doniece Sandoval, the founder, and Kris Kepler, the Chief Program and Strategy Officer at LavaMaeX. They join me remotely from quarantine via Zoom. So thanks to both of you for being here today. And I'm going to start off with just asking Doniece to provide us a little backstory on the why of LavaMae. Why did you start it?
Sure. Well, I founded it in 2013, and sort of in the couple of years leading up to that, I had a sort of very life-changing experience. I was living in San Francisco in a neighborhood that was once the Western Addition and became NOPA after the city began to gentrify. And three of my neighbors, all one by one, we watched as the same thing happened. They moved into their cars, had those eventually repossessed, and ended up on the streets. Sadly, each one of them ended up dying on the streets. And that was so utterly devastating to me and my family. My background is not in working in social services. I'm marketing PR executive, but I decided I wanted to do something. And then I learned Muni was retiring old diesel buses. So a light popped on in my head and I thought, what if we could take those buses and do something good with them by converting them into showers and toilets on wheels for people who are unhoused? And so we launched our program in 2014 and had a tremendous response. Shortly afterwards, we started thinking, why don't we bring more partners to the street? Project Homeless Connect was a partner of ours, was an advisor. And so I went and I said, I would love to take your model and marry it with ours and bring an array of services from showers to medical, dental, legal, and wrap it around community to create these powerful events. Along the road, one of the things that we learned in working with people was that the way that you treat them was almost more important than the service itself, right? So we coined this philosophy called radical hospitality, which is about treating people with extraordinary care. It's about meeting them and seeing them at their highest level. And 99% of the time, that is where they meet you back at. And it's about this incredible, powerful human-to-human connection. Here we are all these years later, and a lot of changes have happened. The programs have grown. But as we looked at what LavaMae was going to be in the future, because in January or so of last year, I quickly realized that we were going to hit our 2020 impact goal to serve 30,000 Californians 16 months ahead of schedule. So we began to think, with all of these things in motion and what's happening, what should our future consist of? And so we relaunched in January as LavaMaeX, and shifted our programming, which Kris is now beautifully leading.
So I think before we turn to that point, over the last 5 years, Doniece, what would you say has been the largest impact of your efforts and the community's efforts? Because not only have you put together this wonderful nonprofit, but you've also put together wonderful partnerships, and you've brought a lot of volunteers, a lot of people, to the pop-up villages, et cetera.
Yeah, I would say that, probably our two most profound impacts are, one, we raised awareness about an issue that was not on most people's radar. People think if you're unhoused, you need housing, you need food, you need clothes. But understanding the fact that access to showers and toilets was a dire crisis in most communities was something that really people didn't know about until LavaMae kind of emerged on the scene. So I think that was really important. The second is, as you mentioned, we're from day one rooted in collaboration and partnership, right? We recognize that one of the most powerful things we can do is to get people to participate in this effort, because it's going to take all of us. But that also, when you have an opportunity to actually meet and converse with, get to know people who are unhoused, what you find out is that they are more like you, like us, than they are different from us. And in breaking down the barriers, then you break down the myths around homelessness. And the more we can do that with people, the more we feel we can affect long-term, powerful change to end the crisis that is homelessness.
Thank you. So, Kris, I'm going to turn to you and have you kind of walk the audience through. So, we've got the accelerator and the whole DIY piece, and then your most recent project with the DIY hand washing.
Yes. So, the process for us from a programming perspective in terms of how we came to this idea is it was very organic. So, as the pandemic hit, we were seeing the increased need to offer hand washing services on the streets. And so I did some research and found that even if you wanted to rent a large scale hand washing station, it was very expensive or not even available anymore. Or if you wanted to purchase this online, it was back ordered. And so the combination of doing that research as well as looking at some really interesting initiatives that other organizations were doing, all of those kind of ideas and inspirations came together, and we said, why don't we just create our own, because there's nowhere for these units to be found. So a coworker and I got out our sketch pad and sketched up some ideas. We purchased some of these parts. We put a prototype together and tested it out in Oakland around Lake Merritt. And that's how the program was born. And so our goal with this is not just to deploy these to communities, but in our backyard, which we're doing, but to also educate anybody to be able to do this, and by offering them things like a supply list, an instruction manual, and a video tutorial to help them do it. So the whole goal is to make these programs easily accessible and deployable in their communities so that they can serve people in a more effective way, especially around hand washing, which is such a critical need right now.
And you guys have a GoFundMe campaign going right now, and you're trying to raise.
We do. Yes. And so part of what we're doing is, as I mentioned, we're deploying a few locally that we will be working with partners and encampment leads on. The other goal is to fundraise for replicators around the US and the world to be able to fund them some money to be able to purchase the parts and to maintain and deploy the units. So the goal for us is really just to get these out in the world so that people can wash their hands. And, it's at this point, it's a life-saving measure, which we think is really critical for hygiene and health.
Can I jump in here, George, and just say I wanted to piggyback what Kris said when she said our goal is to get these out into the world, right? So this is true of our hand washing stations, this is true of our mobile hygiene program, and this is true of our pop-up care villages, right? We are all about sharing our IP and making it accessible without cost to anyone. In fact, we attempt to bring resources to communities that don't have their own means to be able to produce these programs, whether it's the GoFundMe campaign, which is designed to raise $50,000 so that communities who can't afford to create one can get a stipend from us to, buy the materials and put them together. So it's really about, we recognize that we're not trying to sit on top of a hygiene empire. What we're trying to do is empower local communities, because we know local communities know best what they need and how to deliver it.
Yeah. And I would also say, we're really looking at these hand washing stations not just as a product that sits on the street, right? It really is a way for people to connect. So you can educate people that are on the streets on how they need to wash their hands. You could give out hygiene kits around the hand washing stations. You could bring other partners with you to the streets to deliver medical help or bag lunches, things like that. So it's really a way to connect people to the community while still offering a critical service and bringing people together around it.
So that brings me to the other piece of the puzzle, which is I know that LavaMaeX has been working for years trying to diversify funding, and I just noticed that you had a wonderful strategic partnership with Unilever and their new program, The Right to Shower. Could you talk a little bit about that and then how that is helping support the accelerator work?
Sure, yeah. So The Right to Shower is a Unilever brand that is an extremely socially conscious brand. And The Right to Shower is selling soaps and cleanser. And the great thing about this brand is that a portion of the proceeds go to funding replicators to provide access to hygiene. So the main mission and goal is to provide broader access to hygiene for everyone. And so it's a wonderful partnership because we can work with replicators, help fund them through the Right to Shower program to enable more hygiene to be on the streets. And now we're pivoting that program to also include funding for the hand washing station. So the concept of hygiene is being broadened as we see the need. So not just the showers, but the hand washing piece and all of that all wraps into this larger goal of providing hygiene worldwide.
So how can people get involved in supporting LavaMaeX's work?
well, you can donate. That would be really, as Doniece mentioned, we are actively fundraising for hand washing stations so that we can fund other people to deploy worldwide. We have some providers now or individuals that have reached out to us that are creating masks and wanting to donate to us. So some of it is, what are your skill sets that you can actively leverage at home and be able to donate? A lot of it is about, how are we as a larger community coming together to solve this problem, and making sure that everybody is accountable and offering services and hygiene to people on the streets, because the situation is very dire. So making sure everybody knows how important that is, and using your voice, right? Using your voice for the larger issue.
And then final question for both of you. What do you see as good things coming out of the pandemic itself to address our unhoused community members?
Well, I'll start. For one, am optimistic by all of the small acts of kindness, right? I think that this pandemic has kind of shaken us to our core, woken us up a little bit and said, we've been living in these little bubbles, sort of very self-oriented. Maybe we've got our families in that bubble too, but beyond that, that's the way we've been investing. And that's changed, whether it's like the neighbor to neighbor, literally, or as you think about where the crises are and how you support, right? So as Kris said, people making masks, people making shields, people supporting their local restaurants, people checking on a neighbor to see if they have the food and the groceries they need. All of those kinds of things I think are, well, let me say, I don't know if I think, but I hope are changing our societal DNA, right? Because we had gotten very self-centered. And my pink sky vision is that we will emerge from this stronger, more connected than ever before, which will have this incredible ripple effect on issues that need to be solved, like homelessness.
Yeah, and I would also add to that, we always talk about at LavaMaeX that everybody is 2 paychecks in a crisis away from being unhoused, right? And so at this point, it is horrific, because as we all know, people are getting sick and many are losing their jobs. So it's reality now that this could happen to anyone, right? That they could be living on the streets because they cannot find a job in the next however many months, or, in the short term. So it's an equalizer, right? It really makes you stop and think, what does humanity mean to me, and how would I want my neighbors to help me? Overall, in terms of other silver linings for LavaMaeX, I would say that we're really using this as an opportunity to innovate and to stay engaged with our guests and to track the needs week to week, and to say, how can we truly help them and innovate products and services around the immediate need, while thinking about what that means for the long term. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to come to the streets with new programs to increase access to hygiene.
So thank you, Doniece and Kris, for sharing your work today. We will make sure that viewers have your contact information, website, social media, so they can follow your work and get engaged. And please stay safe and healthy as we all go out work our way through this new normal. Thank you both for participating today.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.